In today's video, I've got a stack of dollar books that I picked up at a sale for just 50 cents a piece. Check it out. Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name's Chris, and this is Northgarden Comics. I recently went to my favorite dollar bin diving spot in my area. Name of the store is Pulp Comics and Games. They're located in Mankato, Minnesota, and I'll put links to their YouTube channel, website, and things like that down below in the description of this video. In case you're in the area, or maybe you will be in the future, and you want to check them out, then you'll be able to do so. But I try to get down there periodically, or I should say regularly, maybe once every couple of months, just to dive in their dollar bins, because it is a fantastic inventory of back issues that they have. And they have sometimes some older things in there. You can find some Bronze Age run fillers and things like that. You can also find a lot of more modern books, and I use that a lot of times to fill in maybe recently concluded runs or even some current running titles that I'm not keeping up with every month new. And on this particular occasion, they were having a 50% off sale for all their dollar books, which means, of course, you get all those dollar books for just 50 cents a piece. And I love that, because if a dollar wasn't a good enough price already, 50 cents just blows it out of the water, and you just wind up bringing home even more books. So that's what I'm going to show you today. I do have, well, I'll get more to that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get to these books. What I started to say before was that I did have some books to show you that came from a different trip to Pulp Comics and Games. So the first 10 books or so were actual dollar books on a previous trip. So I'll just show you those quickly. Several of these are X-Men related, and well, you'll see them as we go through them. So as we get toward the end of the Krakoan era for the X-Men, the titles went through a series of one-shots and limited series that had this before the fall kind of marking on it. And I didn't get any of those new. I'm just trying to piece those together as I can find them for cheap. And I was able to find a couple of those at their store at this particular trip. This one is called The Heralds of Apocalypse, and that's just a one-shot. So I grabbed that. And then this other one that's called Sons of X. So don't know what's going on in the story there, but I'm looking forward to being able to read those. And then I found a few issues from a concluded title from years ago now. This is Wolverine and the X-Men. I was collecting some of this because of the Chris Bachalo art. These I got because you've got Pepe Larraz doing the art on these. So I picked up issue 39, issue 40, 41, and then lastly 42, and this is the concluding issue to this volume. So glad to get those for $1 a piece. Then I picked up this issue 5 from the most recent Rogue and Gambit literal limited series. This is issue 5 of 5. This is another one. Didn't get these new, but just picked them up as I could from the back issues. And I think with this one now I have the whole thing. So glad to have concluded that. And then the last few books here are from the IDW era of Transformers. I have pretty much everything from that era, but I do still pick up variant covers at times. Most of the issues that came out through that era had both at least an A and a B cover, and sometimes more. And so I just keep my eyes peeled, and I know which ones I have in my CLZ app, and if I like the alternate cover and I get it at a good price, and I'll pick those up. And this is from the More Than Meets the Eye, the first volume that ran for 57 issues. This is the A cover to issue number 17, and I think that's an Alex Milne cover. Loved his art on all things Transformers from that time. This one goes back a little bit earlier. This was from the first ongoing Transformers title at IDW. This is the A cover from issue 11. And then lastly, this was kind of like the parallel title to More Than Meets the Eye. It was Transformers Robots in Disguise, and I'm guessing this is the A cover. It doesn't say, but this is issue number 34. So always happy to pick up Transformers. They are my first love when it comes to comics, and so Always happy when I can add more cool art and books to my collection from that. That's it for the dollar books. The rest of these now came from the same boxes on a separate occasion, but these were all just 50 cents a piece. So diving right in here, we'll start off with a really cool one. You know, when you go hunting for comics, and this almost goes without saying, but I imagine when you go, there's things you're looking for, but then there's things that you're not necessarily looking for, but you just happen to stumble across. Maybe you didn't even know it existed, but when you see it, you think it's pretty cool, and so you grab it and bring it home with you. That's what this first book is an example of. This is a reprint of Uncanny X-Men number 133. This would have had a much higher price tag if this was the first print, but it's a reprint, and I believe it was called the Marvel Legends reprint. You can see down here it says not for resale in the where the UPC code would be, but I'm guessing this was packaged maybe with an action figure, but it's a famous issue of Uncanny X-Men, like most of them are from this era. Got a really cool appearance with Wolverine. His, you know, the role he plays in the story is great, and yeah, I figured for 50 cents, it's just a great issue to have. It is kind of beat up itself, but again, for the price, I was very happy to add that one to my collection, because I will not likely have a first print of 133 anytime soon, if ever. Next up, I got a few issues from the current title X-Force. I've been getting some of these new, but piecing the others together through the dollar bins, and at the sale I was able to grab issue 20, 21, 27, 28, and 29. This is a title where I am getting the new issues again new. I'm not waiting, because there's the storyline that's following Beast, and he's, you know, gone bad, and I want to see how that concludes. And it looks like X-Force is going to conclude with issue 50, and then we'll see what happens when Krakoa falls and everything kind of gets reset. But got some good progress on filling in a few holes from that run during the sale. This next book is another one of those, wasn't looking for it, didn't even know it existed, but I definitely was happy to grab it. This is The Incredible Hulk and Wolverine. It is a wraparound cover by John Byrne. And what this is a reprint of their first meeting. And of course, it's also the first appearances of Wolverine. So this little bit thicker comic book reprints Hulk 180 and 181. And it's just a fun thing to have. Another comic, you know, obviously I don't have a first print of those, but I do have the facsimiles that recently came out. But this was just a fun thing to be able to pick up. And it's from, when did this come out? 1986. So this came out in 86. And it's got the 2 issues. And then at the back, I wanted to show you, it's got this little extra called Wolverine, the Evolution of a Character. So it shows how he came about. And you got some art in here by John Byrne. And others, you got some sketches and things. So I thought that was just a cool little addition. And I'm always keeping my eyes open for those kind of maybe more offbeat things that not everybody's looking for. And it doesn't have any intrinsic value other than to me, but it's still a cool way to own a copy of that story. So glad to grab that. Here is a Wizard half issue. They did these like half issues and 0 issues back in the 90s of a variety of titles. And this is the Wizard half issue. Looks like it was free originally, of Gen 13. And it does have the certificate of authenticity in the back there as well. Comes in a really kind of fancy schmancy bag here, but which even has a little, you know, tuck-in flap back here to keep it safe. So that's pretty cool. I was never a collector of Gen 13, but they're, you know, number 1 is iconic, and I had found a copy of that in the dollar bins some years ago. And there's some other Jim Lee artwork on there that I, you know, have found over the years. But when I see cool covers and cool versions of issues like this, it's fun to get them, especially when they're just 50 cents a piece. I'm a big fan of Thor, and though I'm not working on everything Thor related, I'm happy to pick up some slightly older Thors when they're cheap. This is Thor Annual number 12 from his first volume, so that was fun. And then keeping with Thor, this is another one of those books that I've never seen before, but it's going to be the kind of thing that not everybody has, so just a fun pickup. This is called Thor World Engine. Sorry, the font was a little hard to read there. World Engine, and this is a square bound, a little bit thicker, not quite a trade paperback, but it is a reprint, a collection of some of the Thor ongoing issues from that time. Pencils, I think, at this time were being done by Mike Deodato Jr., but Thor looking very 90s and extreme. His hair got super, super long. And this reprints, I forget what the issues were, 491 to 494. So just a reprinting, again, for the price, and it's just a cool little collection. That's just a fun way to have those issues. So grab that. Then I found a couple more issues from the era of Superman that I'm working on back in the early/mid 90s. Here is Superman number 80. Most of the things I'm going for are around kind of the death and return of Superman era, and maybe a little bit before that. That's when I was collecting Superman somewhat actively, just not nearly all the issues. So I have that one, and then Superman number 82 as well. Next up, I actually don't think I realized what this was when I grabbed it. I just thought it was a cool cover and thought maybe it was just a variant cover. This is Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, the 40th anniversary covers. And what that means is it's a collection of covers all done by artist Chris Sprouse. And I read the blurb on the back here, and basically what they did back when it was the 40th anniversary, they enlisted Chris Sprouse to do a series of variant covers for many of the Star Wars titles that were coming out at that time. And then what this book represents is the collection of all of those covers, but when you have them all together, it represents The Empire Strikes Back in single page, single splash pages all the way through. Not every detail, of course, but it's just the retelling of the story in the form of those covers. And so I thought that was pretty cool and unique. I didn't know that was the intention, but I know I'll never go and get all of those individual Star Wars issues. So happy to be able to find a one-shot like this that has all those covers together, and now I can flip through and see the whole story just in picture telling through those covers. And then there's some extras in the back that's got some of the sketches and the work that he did building those out. So pretty cool find. Like I said, didn't know what I was getting, but it was Star Wars, looked cool, grabbed it for 50 cents, and only upon getting home and reflecting a little bit further did I find out how cool it really was. All right, next up here, this is an Image title that I'm just collecting because it looks cool. The art looks cool, the colors are cool. It's from an era of the 90s that some titles I have nostalgia for, but not all. And this is a relatively easy run to put together. It only ran like 14 issues, and I think at this point I'm down to just a couple more to finish it out. This is Codename Strike Force, created by Mark Silvestri, I believe. And this is issue 8. So just one more hole to fill in. Joe Benitez does the cover on this, and he does the interior art as well. And I like his art style. So yeah, just a fun thing to be hunting for in the discount bins. I love the Silver Surfer, and there's this, I think it was a limited series called Cosmic Powers Unlimited, starring the Silver Surfer. This is issue 3. And it's a wraparound cover with Lunatic and Jack of Hearts on the back there. Jack of Hearts kind of making a recent kind of return to the spotlight as he's been appearing with Fantastic Four and with She-Hulk and things like that. But yeah, got that for the Silver Surfer connection. This one I got because I'm a completionist. This is Daydreamers number 2. I got Daydreamers number 1 through a bulk buy that I made towards the end of 2023. And this is a 3-part limited series featuring some of the kind of the misfits even of the mutant world. And I just thought, you know, I already had issue 1, there's only 2 more issues, and they had number 2, so why not get it? And now I just need issue 3 to complete this limited series. Now we're going to go back to the Bronze Age for this reprint title. This is Marvel Double Feature, which reprints early Cap and Iron Man stories. And it'll choose, what was the title that they appeared in? Was that Tales of Suspense? It'll choose 1 Cap story and 1 Iron Man story, but not from the same issue. So it's not a total reprint of a single issue. It'll be half and half, you know, from 2 different issues. So just to give you an example, this particular comic, number 18, reprints. This was, the Cap story was originally presented in Tales of Suspense 94. And then if I can flip back here, oh, look at that. This wasn't even Tales of Suspense. The second story featuring Iron Man was originally presented in Iron Man number 1. So that's pretty cool too. But I like these reprints. Another title that I look for because it gives you some good Jack Kirby art, especially on the covers, and then the interiors a lot of times as well. And they're books that I would never pay up market price to have the originals. But when you can get them for 50 cents, even in the form of a reprint, that's super cool to add to my collection. So I keep my eyes peeled for those whenever I can find those. Next up, I found a whole limited series at once. This is Batman vs. Predator. It was a 3-part square-bound limited series from, I want to say the 90s at some point. But I had a copy of number 1 that I got probably new when it came out. It was the A cover. And then this is, I want to say they call it like the C cover, like the collector's edition or something like that. But they had that, and they had issue number 2, which again has some art in the back as well. And then issue number 3 with some art in the back as well. So cool to find the entire limited series and have an additional cover to that number 1. Then we've got a handful, still keeping with Batman here, handful of Batman books that I got because they're helping me fill in holes in my Batman collection from the 90s. Kind of how I mentioned before I'm doing with the Superman books. I was also collecting Batman, Detective Comics, particularly a little bit before Nightfall, and there were a lot of issues there that I'm still missing. But going back further, I think I really started jumping into Batman right around the time where it was Death in the Family. So, you know, that whole kind of era of like 100 issues or so, going up all the way through Kelly Jones' art run on Batman. That was kind of my time for collecting Batman, and so I'm going back and filling in holes there where I need to. But not aggressively, just when I can find them like this in a 50-cent bin. I'm not going to spend up for it because it's just to fill out that collection. It's not because I'm super attached, you know, and want to pay up for those things. So just fun things to be hunting for. But here's Batman number 479. And then the rest of these are Detective Comics. And these, I think, are all kind of in that general time frame of the Norm Breyfogle art run on Detective. And I really like his style and the way he plays with light and things in Batman's costume and the colors. But here's Detective Comics 613. 616. And if you heard that peeling sound, these are polyethylene bags, probably from however many years ago. 617. 622. And 623. So, nice little progress there on Batman. So we're chugging along here, but look, this is how many more we still got to go. I'll keep things moving here. Here is another recent title. I want to say it was a limited series, 4 or 5 issues. This is the first one I've got towards that, and thankfully it is number 1 because it's nice to start at the beginning. This is Bishop War College, and not a before the fall. I'm not exactly sure where exactly this falls into the timeline. Still towards the latter end of the Krakoa era, but I like Bishop as a character, but there's just too many X-Men one-shots, limited series, ongoings, specials to be able to keep up with all of them new. My budget's not that big, so I have to roll the dice, get the ones new that I'm really committed to having, which is usually a couple of the flagship titles, but then everything else I have to kind of hope I can find down the road, and usually I can. Or I read them on Marvel Unlimited. That's the other thing I like to do for newer comics. Going to keep with the X-Men here, but not a new series. This is Age of Apocalypse. It was, I want to say, a 14-issue run, and I don't know exactly what's going on in the story, but this is a title that is one of those where I've known about it for quite a while, wasn't going to collect it, and then as time goes on, you just feel yourself getting closer and closer to actually saying, all right, I'll pick those up. And some of the reasons are Age of Apocalypse. It's one of my favorite all-time X-Men stories. I have the single issues, I have the omnibus edition, and I just like that era. But then also, you can see up the top here, it says, From the Pages of Uncanny X-Force. That's a volume that I, not too long ago, completed putting together in the dollar bins, and I've heard good things about that run. I still have to read that, but this appears to spin out of those pages, and so it seemed like another reason why it might be a natural extension of collecting to go ahead and get this run. No keys in here that you have to worry about spending up on, but because they had a handful of them and they were all just 50 cents a piece, that seemed like enough motivation for me to finally say, all right, I'll go for it. Let me get some of these issues. But there's issue number 1, and then we jump way ahead to issue number 11, 12, 13. It's Greg Land cover. And the final issue from that volume, this is issue 14. So fun to be able to get that, and it kind of connects nicely on the other side, because this is part of that Extermination crossover. I do have, I think, the two, I guess I'll call them standalone issues that just are called Extermination. And so it's kind of nice to be able to piece together more of that story also. So at some point I'll have to look more closely at that title, see what issues and books I need to collect to be able to have that whole thing. But that's going to serve multiple purposes in having bought that. So glad to find those. Here is kind of another title that I started collecting by way of extension. This is Avengers World. This goes back to the Jonathan Hickman era when he was writing Avengers, and his storytelling on Avengers is really what got me into Avengers to begin with. I was never an Avengers collector of any kind. I was an X-Men collector and a Transformers collector when you go way back, but never really got into the Avengers at all. But I started with Hickman during the Time Runs Out story that kind of set the stage for Secret Wars, and I just have so many good things to say about that whole era. But that right there, getting me into those titles, unleashed a whole bunch of other collecting for me, and it triggered me to go get the Hickman era on Fantastic Four, because you start to read him and you know that he was laying seeds for some of that story all the way back there. So I've put together that run, and then all his Avengers and the new Avengers stuff, Secret Wars, etc., etc. But here's another title that he was writing at first with Nick Spencer. I think it ran like maybe 20-some issues, and I don't know that Jonathan Hickman wrote all of it. I think he may have at least started it, but then Nick Spencer may have taken it through to the end. But all that to say, this is another one of those, well, I like the Avengers, I like the new Avengers, this might just flesh out that story a little bit more for me. So I'm going to go ahead and put this volume together. And at the sale, I got a jump start. So I got number 1. Always love this cover. Number 2. And then jumping ahead, number 13. And you can see the writer just has Nick Spencer's name there. No Hickman on that. So 3 issues. They're not in order, but again, I know I want to get that whole volume, and they had those 3 for 50 cents. So just go ahead and jumpstart those. Here is an event that I never collected. It was a limited series, it looks like, 4 parts. This is Avengers X Sanction, and I know Cable features pretty strongly in this, and I've never collected it, but figured I should add that to my wish list, and now I have issue 1. So I got to keep looking for the others and get more familiar with what's going on in the story, but I really like Cable, and of course I like the Avengers now, so go ahead and hunt for those. Here is a variant to a book I already had. This is from the Avengers versus X-Men back in, gosh, what year was that? 2011, 12, 13, somewhere in there, whenever that came out. This is a variant to number 11. This is a Lionel U cover? Yeah. Lionel U, you just have Black Widow and Psylocke battling there. Just thought that was a cool art cover to grab as a variant. This book was probably the most surprising book I found in the dollar bins that day, because I never would have expected to see this in the dollar bins. And I will say it does have its kind of condition issues, but still would never have expected to find this in the dollar bins. I have rebagged and boarded this now, so it is in Mylar, so it probably looks even nicer than it did when I bought it. But this is The Thing number 1. I mean, I see The Thing issues all the time in the dollar bins, and I've toyed with, do I want to collect that or not? And I still haven't made the final decision that I will collect that, but definitely not going to pass up issue number 1 for just 50 cents. I will say this had, I won't take it out actually, this had some sticker, residue on the back cover and things like that. So it does have some condition issues, but nothing terrible. And I think you'd agree. I don't know how well it's coming through on the video, but it looks real nice in the Mylar. So that was probably my favorite find from the perspective of never would have thought I'd see this in a dollar bin, but super, super happy to have found that. Then I made some more progress on the Jason Aaron run on Avengers. You can start to see how I collect some of these different runs and titles and things. I have a lot of his time on Avengers, but not everything, because toward the end, I think I've said this before, it got really confusing and started spinning off into other titles and things, and so I just had to hit the pause button, because again, too many things to collect, and just figure I'll wait for the dust to settle, and then I'll see which titles and issues do I need to go and get. And one of those, though, is Avengers Forever. Ran for 15 issues, and I was finally able to get a copy of number 1 to add to my collection. Still got a few more to go on that. These next 3 were that category of, I didn't even know Marvel did these, and they're kind of weird, but that's part of what made me say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get those, because I've never seen them before, and I don't know many people who are going to have these in their collection. The title is called Avengers Universe, and you can see right away, this is very, I almost want to say 90s-ish with CGI and things like that, but this was actually 2000, so still within that time frame. Hey, we can do cool art on computers, so let's pull that into our comic book covers. And so this is a CGI, I'm sure, computer-generated image for Iron Man on Avengers Universe, but they had issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3. I can't get over Thor's face there. Look at that expression on his face. But, yeah. Anyway, I had to look up what these were. I got them not knowing, just because they seemed kind of, like I said, kind of weird, and I figured 50 cents a piece, sure, I'll get those. This only ran for 6 issues. The first 3 issues that I got, these are reprints. So these each contain 3 comics from the Heroes Return era of titles. Most of the stories in here are Avengers reprints from the Busiek-Perez run on Avengers, but there's also a Hulk and at least 1 Thor from the Heroes Return as well. So, like I said, a little offbeat, nothing super valuable, but just kind of fun, weird stuff that Marvel came out with. Now, I said the first 3 issues were reprints. There is an issue 4, 5, and 6. Those actually told new stories that I believe were Iron Fist Wolverine kind of a team up and spun out of another title. But it's a 3-part story in those last 3 issues. So don't know what Marvel was doing at the time, why they came out with this. Did they originally intend for it to be a reprint and then needed a place to be able to tell that other story and said, hey, why don't we just repurpose this title? Because they're called Avengers Universe as well. But anyway, that's all I really know. You can Google that and see more if you want to. But just figured it'd be a fun thing to bring home. Next one helped me complete a limited series that I've been working on just because it looks kind of cool and it's gimmicky. But Avengers Mech Strike #4. You got the Avengers, you got big robot versions of good guys and bad guys. So sure, why not? That's fun. For 50 cents, I'll take that. So now I completed that limited series with that one. Next two covers, I don't remember what the issues are because they're Virgin variants. And you've heard me talk about these before. My one kind of critique of a Virgin variant is you have no way of knowing what the issue is unless you pull it out and look at the back. And I kind of like to see the title and the number and things like that right on the front. I think this is from Avengers Forever, but this is the Alex Ross Galactus cover. Let's just take a quick peek, shall we? No. Avengers Assemble Omega. So I think that's still Jason Aaron. Yeah, but it's from that confusing time when it's hard to know what's going on and what order you have to read everything in. So Avengers Assemble Omega. There was an alpha issue also. So I'll get all these laid out in reading order once I complete them, and then I can actually read them all. But that was a cool cover. I remember when this was solicited, and I had it in my shopping cart, meaning I get all of my new books that I buy. I pre-order them through an online service called DCBS, and so I order books like 2+ months before they come out. And this one I remember being solicited, and I wanted to get it, but then I made the decision, I load up my cart and then I see, ooh, that's going to cost how much? Well, I got to take some out. And so this was one of the ones that didn't make the cut. So I'm really happy to now have found one in the wild for just 50 cents. And then the other one I got at the sale was this Alex Ross of Scarlet Witch. This one is from Strange Academy #4. So just cool because of the Alex Ross variant, and I have several of them. So I figured for 50 cents, I'll add that to my themed collection of his Virgin painted covers. Got a few cool indie books to show you next. This character had a limited series, went 3 issues before she signed on with Marvel. This is Angela, made her first appearance in Spawn. What was that, issue 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, but still at her time at Image. This, I want to say, is 1994 or early 95 that this came out. This was written by Neil Gaiman and penciled by Greg Capullo. And I don't know anything about the story here. I just saw that they had all 3 issues and was going to happily grab those for the price. But there's issue #1. Here is issue 2. And lastly, issue 3. So that's pretty cool. And one of the exciting things about going to sales like this is because you never know what you're going to find, and you can find some things that you weren't even looking for. In addition to that, they also had this Angela one-shot. When I looked it up, I think it's called like Angela Special or something like that. It's a one-shot. I think it was free to retailers when they ordered a certain number of copies of Spawn 32, but this one's considered at least a minor key because there's a pirate version of Spawn in here who makes his first appearance, and so that makes that a minor key. I got it just because, again, Angela, one shot, just seemed kind of cool and a great price. So, grab that as well. Then we're kind of getting to the home stretch here. This is a limited series. This is Avengers Prime, #3 of 5, written by Brian Michael Bendis, pencils by Alan Davis. I had to look this up in terms of where this fits in the timeline. The closest I can tell you right now is that it takes place after the Siege event concludes. And I think I have now 4 of the 5 issues, but because I like the characters, I like Alan Davis, and I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and get this. And contrary to maybe a lot of people's opinion, I liked Brian Michael Bendis' writing on the things that I've read, at least. primarily all new X-Men when he brought the teenage X-Men from the past into the present. But yeah, so I figured one more issue on that, and I think just one more to go to complete it. Here was a fun limited series that, again, they had in its entirety, so I grabbed all of them. This is Sword of Azrael, 1, 2, 3, 4, with his first appearance here in book 1. Joe Quesada doing the pencils there. Does he? Yeah, he does the interiors as well as the covers. So that was pretty cool for 50 cents. But then even more cool that they had the entire story. There's part 2. Part 3, and another really cool, it's another one of these wizard type bags, which was not original to this one, I don't think, but that was cool. And then this is actually kind of cool with book 4. Look at the top price sticker on this one. This says Dragon Strike on this price sticker up here. And my hunch is that this bag, and maybe the board, are the original ones that the very first store put them in, because it says Dragon Strike $2.50. You know, that's a little bit more than cover price. It was being sold for $1.75, but kind of the little code up here says 93-01, and this came out in January of 93. So that could be when they put this in their back issue stock, and I just thought that was pretty cool. And for people who think you need to rebag books all the time, or regularly, I am not in that camp. I think it depends. You have to obviously look. If it looks like it needs to be rebagged and boarded, you should. Or if the environmental conditions in which you store your books is not ideal, then that can lead to premature aging, and so you might need to do some things there. But at the same time, I have plenty of books that are in polypropylene and polyethylene bags that have not really been any worse for the wear after 30 plus years. And this one here, this board might be looking a little sad. I'll have to make sure that they even put the book on the right side of the board, because that can definitely lead to some unwanted ink transfer and things like that. But you can see that the bag itself looks, generally pretty nice, still pretty intact. So, but all that rambling to say, I thought the sticker was pretty cool, and that it might be the original store. If any of you out there has ever heard of a comic book store called Dragon Strike and know where it may have been, let us know down in the comments. That was pretty cool. And now the last things to show you are back to X-Men. This is a title I hadn't been collecting. I think I jump-started it because of that bulk buy I mentioned earlier, where I got some of the issues for like less than 10 cents a piece. And that was enough push for me to say, well, all right, I'll keep my eye out for these. It does help that it's written by Chris Claremont, and that the first half of it is penciled by Salvador Larroca. But I am talking about Extreme X-Men, Volume 1, and they had a handful of issues here that I picked up for cheap. This is number 4. Here's number 5. Number 7. 8. Whoops. 9, and then an annual from 2001. So I don't know yet if I'll collect all of it. I think Volume 1 ran for like 40 some issues, and it's had the omnibus treatment for Volume 1, and Volume 2 I think is coming out later this year. So I don't know. I'm going to read, I've got like the first 10 issues or so now. I'm going to read those and see what I think of it, and then decide if I want to keep going. But happy that I could round out some of those first couple story arcs for cheap. And then the last 2 books to show you, still connected to Extreme X-Men, but I'll admit my own confusion. I wasn't completely sure where these fit, because I think there have been 2 volumes of Extreme X-Men. And then on top of that, they recently did a limited series with the same name. And I wasn't sure where these last 2 issues came from. Once I got home and looked them up, I realized, oh, these are from the limited series. So they're kind of disconnected from anything I've shown you so far. But the covers are really cool, and they brought back both Chris Claremont and Salvador Larroca for these. Here's issue number 1 from that limited series. So that's a nice cover. But then I really like the cover to issue number 2 with Wolverine. So I figured, well, I wasn't planning on buying that limited series, but now I have 2 issues, so who knows, maybe I'll go ahead and finish that out, because I think that was just 4 or 5 issues at most. Well, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to do it for this 50-cent back issue haul from the amazing sale down at Pulp Comics and Games. Again, links to Pulp Comics, if you want to check them out, are down below in the description. I do hope you saw something that you liked, but what about you? What kinds of things are you finding in your own adventures? Let us know down below. Now, if you're not quite ready for the YouTube fun to stop, I have hand-selected a couple videos here for you to check out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.